Every one of us is tasked with bringing the world to perfection. This week's Parsha reveals the secret to help us do just that. The book of Vayikra is mostly a book of mitzvot, of law, containing more mitzvot than any other book. In fact, the book of Vayikra contains so little narrative that when we encounter a story, we take notice. Parashah Emor contains one such story. Right at the end of the Parsha, we read of a man whose mother was an Israelite and whose father was Egyptian. The man gets into a fight, blasphemes Hashem, and then we read about how the situation was all dealt with. Who was this man and what led him to blaspheming against Hashem? Rashi offers several explanations. I wanted to share two of them. First, Rashi keys off the opening words of the episode, Vayetzi. He came out. Rashi asks, where did he come out of? And he answers, the Beis Din, the rabbinical court. Why was this man in court? Well, the Israelite camp was organized by a tribe, with each tribe having a designated area to pitch their tents. This man's mother was an Israelite from the tribe of Dan, but his father was Egyptian and thus had no tribe. Tribal affiliation follows the father, making this man tribeless. He wanted to pitch his tent with his mother's tribe, the tribe of Dan, but the tribal leaders didn't think that was right. So to court they went, and the courts ruled that the tribal leaders were in fact correct, and he should not camp with Dan. This ruling angered the man, and out of anger, he cursed Hashem. Second, Rashi ties the story to what came immediately before in the Parsha, which were the laws of the showbreads. These were 12 loaves of bread that were baked fresh every week and placed before the altar every Shabbat. And then they sat there for the week, only to be changed for 12 fresh loaves the following Shabbat. The man felt this made no sense. If we're trying to show honor to Hashem, shouldn't we have 12 fresh loaves every single day? Why let the bread sit there for 7 days? If this law made no sense, why should he believe any of the other laws? And out of cynicism, he blasphemes against Hashem. Two different reasons offered by Rashi for what could lead someone to cursing Hashem: anger and cynicism. These two emotions lead to the misuse of language. Chaverim, my friends, if there are two emotions that capture the reality of the last 588 days, it's anger and it's cynicism. And can anybody blame us for feeling that way? Can anyone blame us that the anger and the cynicism lead us to misuse language? Can anyone blame us if that anger and cynicism lead us to curse, not God forbid Hashem, but to curse at the world? To prepare for these videos, I listened to a bunch of different shiurim. The playlist changes from week to week, but I have a few go-tos. One of those go-tos is Rabbi Moshe Tarragon from Yeshivat Har Etzion. But this week's shiur was a little different. In the middle of the recording, the siren sounded, incoming missiles from Yemen. The students knew how to react. Unfortunately, this was not the first time they had to react to the sirens. They paused the recording and calmly went down to the bomb shelter under the Beit Midrash. Listening to the recording 1 day later and 10,000 kilometers away, I wasn't quite so calm. I was angry. Why were we okay with missiles being fired from Yemen every few days? Why does this not even register on the world's radar? Why is it normalized for our brothers, sisters, and our children in Israel to have to run to shelters on such a regular basis that it's become part of their daily routine? If any other country had dozens of cruise missiles fired at it week in and week out for months, surely the world would care, but not when it's Israel. I was cynical. I get cynical when I see the hate rallies on the streets of Toronto, on university campuses across the world, and in every corner of the internet. And who could blame me for being cynical? With all of this anger and this is cynicism, would anybody blame me or you for cursing at the absurdity of the situation? Cursing that students learning Torah need a shelter under their classroom. Cursing that they need to use it so often. Cursing that no one cares. Cursing that the whole world has gone mad. But then the recording resumed, and my emotions changed. When they were all safely huddled in the underground bomb shelter with cruise missiles heading their way, the students weren't doom scrolling on their phones. They weren't cursing the world. They resumed learning Torah. The acoustics were bad, the background was noisy, but they resumed the shiur, and I listened to words of Torah being taught in a bomb shelter with cruise missiles heading towards them in our ancient homeland. My anger and my cynicism was replaced with pride and with hope. Pride that Israel cares enough about all of its citizens, Jew, Christian, and Muslim alike, to ensure shelters are everywhere and available for everyone. Pride that the students were comfortable enough to resume learning, knowing that Israel has invested in robust anti-missile defenses to deal with the threat, and that the IDF, where these students will serve in coming years, had their backs. I felt hope in seeing the rabbis and the students supporting one another through these difficult times, supporting each other like family, because they are family. We were all family. Hope seeing these students choose learning Torah over sitting in fear, anger, or with cynicism. Hope seeing these rabbis channeling these emotions into using speech to spread Torah, rather than using speech to blaspheme Hashem, as we saw in the Parashah. Anger and cynicism are two emotions that no one will blame you for feeling these days, but those emotions don't lead to anything good. We need to find ways to get past the anger and the cynicism and find the pride and the hope. The kind of pride we find when we see the entire Jewish world coming together as a family. The kind of hope we find when we see Jews around the world reconnecting with their Jewish identities. These are the emotions that lead to action, the kind of action that can change the world. That is one thing we can learn from this week's Parsha. How will you step up this week to bring the world a little closer to perfection? Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.